Jesus wept, the shortest verse with the deepest meaning. Welcome to today's deep dive into one of the most profound moments in the Bible. Jesus wept. It's the shortest verse in Scripture, but it carries profound meaning for believers and non-believers alike. Over the next few minutes, we'll unpack its significance, why Jesus wept, what it reveals about his nature, and how it applies to our lives today. If you've ever felt sorrow or grief, this message is for you. The context of Jesus wept, the story behind the verse. Let's start with the context. The verse Jesus wept is found in John 11:35, set within the story of Lazarus. Lazarus, the brother of Mary and Martha, was a close friend of Jesus. When Jesus learned of Lazarus' illness, he delayed his journey to their home. By the time he arrived, Lazarus had been dead for days. Historical note: in Jewish culture, mourning practices were intense and public. By the fourth day, decomposition would have begun, emphasizing the finality of death. When Jesus arrived, Martha ran to meet him, expressing both faith and frustration. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Jesus reassured her, saying, "I am the resurrection and the life." Yet, when he saw Mary and others weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and wept himself. Jesus' delay and its purpose. Why did Jesus delay his arrival? This might seem puzzling. However, Jesus explained earlier to his disciples, this sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. John 11:4. The delay served to display God's power over death and to strengthen the faith of his followers. The humanity of Jesus, Jesus' emotional connection. Let's focus on the phrase, Jesus wept. These two words reveal so much about the character of Jesus. Despite being divine, he was fully human, capable of feeling the deepest emotions. Hebrews 4:15, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses. Isaiah 53:3, he was a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. Jesus' tears reflect emotional resonance, what modern psychology calls empathy. Empathy involves sharing and understanding others' pain, a trait that builds trust and connection. The power of tears. Tears are a universal language of grief. Research shows that crying releases stress hormones and fosters emotional healing. Jesus' tears weren't a sign of weakness, but a demonstration of his profound love and solidarity with human suffering. Jesus' empathy and compassion. Jesus' deep compassion. Jesus didn't just weep, he was deeply moved. The Greek word used in John 11:33 is embrimaumia, which suggests a strong emotional response, even anger. But what was he angry about? Likely, it was his reaction to the devastation caused by sin and death. Theological insight: Jesus' response was both sorrow and righteous indignation. He wept over the brokenness of the world, a brokenness he came to heal. Modern applications of empathy: a doctor's compassion in a time of grief. Dr. Maria Alvarez was a seasoned pediatrician who had seen her fair share of heartbreak in her 15 years of practice. However, nothing could prepare her for the day she encountered the Turner family. Their 6-year-old daughter, Emma, had been rushed to the hospital after a sudden illness. Despite the medical team's best efforts, Emma passed away unexpectedly. The grief in the room was palpable. Emma's parents, Sarah and Mark, were inconsolable, their world shattered. Dr. Alvarez had fulfilled her duties as a doctor, but as she stood at the doorway, watching their anguish, she felt a deep stirring of empathy. She knew she couldn't just walk away. Instead of leaving the grieving family to their pain, Dr. Alvarez chose to stay. She pulled up a chair and sat with them, holding Sarah's trembling hand as tears streamed down her own face. For hours, she listened to their stories about Emma, the little girl who loved painting rainbows, who always giggled when her dad told silly jokes, and who dreamed of becoming a vet. When words seemed inadequate, Dr. Alvarez simply sat in silence, her presence a quiet but powerful source of comfort. She helped them navigate the practical arrangements they now had to face and assured them they weren't alone in their journey of loss. Months later, Sarah and Mark returned to the hospital not for medical care, but to thank Dr. Alvarez. They shared how her compassion had been a lifeline in the darkest moment of their lives. Her willingness to stay, to weep with them, and to share their burden made them feel seen and understood. Dr. Alvarez later reflected on that day, saying, "I couldn't bring Emma back, but I could give her parents the gift of empathy." Sometimes, the greatest healing we offer isn't medical, it's simply being present. This story highlights how small acts of empathy, like staying with someone in their grief, can make a profound impact. reminding us of the humanity we all share. Take small steps to show empathy, like listening without judgment or offering help to someone in need. Divine love and the hope of resurrection, the hope Jesus brings. While Jesus' tears show his empathy, the story doesn't end there. He demonstrated his power over death by raising Lazarus, pointing to the ultimate hope found in his resurrection. John 11:25-26, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die, a foreshadowing of his resurrection. This miracle foreshadowed Jesus' own resurrection, proving that he has the power to conquer death. For Christians, this is the cornerstone of faith. Our hope is not limited to this life, but extends into eternity. Applying Jesus wept to our lives, finding comfort in Jesus' compassion. Have you ever felt like no one understands your pain? Remember, Jesus wept. He knows what it's like to grieve and promises to walk with us in our darkest moments. Psalm 34:18, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit, becoming instruments of compassion. Jesus' example calls us to be compassionate toward others. Who in your life needs your support right now? A simple act of kindness can make a world of difference. Take one specific action this week to show empathy, like visiting someone who is lonely or donating to a cause that supports the grieving. As we wrap up, let's remember that Jesus wept not just for Lazarus, but for all of humanity. His tears reflect his love, his compassion, and his desire to bring us hope. If you're grieving today, take comfort in knowing you are not alone. Jesus understands, and his love never fails. If this message resonated with you, share it with someone who needs encouragement. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more uplifting content.